Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming and welcome back to a new Elden Ring build video. Today we are talking once again about waves of darkness combined with the powers of the Colossal swords and how they've been improved steadily over the last few patches to be pretty insane. Combined with simple benefits of things like Star Shower and the incredible in PvP Carian Slicer, this is a deadly combo that is extremely effective baseline. When it comes to PvP, we have incredible mix-ups, heavy slow hits and really fast combinations, creating really fun mind games that are a real problem to deal with. Whereas in PvE, you're able to do massive bursts of damage through just the one Ash of War, let alone all the utility of this build. So whether you're suddenly crunching people in PvP or making the best of all the options you have in PvE, this magical greatsword is very effective. So let's talk how this works in PvP. So in PvP then, we have a Colossal sword in the Greatsword, with good range to its swings, and nice, generally horizontal swings at that. They're coming out quicker thanks to recent patches, and obviously it's going to be a trading machine with just the basic attacks. No matter what you do, you can have big damage, and very importantly, high poise damage to stagger enemies. And with the slower nature of attacks, it's great with, say, the sorceries we have in this toolkit. Of course, Crouch Poke is back as well. Its over-nerf state was a bit too much, so they walked that back. It's not what it once was, but it's now very good, certainly good roll catch, although the damage is noticeably smaller than a normal hit. Still, this can be a great roll catch, and especially a finisher if they are low. With the weapon being a frost or cold weapon, there's going to be those frost procs as well, dealing damage and nerfing their ability to regen stamina, which is very nice in PvP. You can just rely on the weapon itself to really carry you through duels if you're good with the spacing and the moveset, but of course we have all the other benefits of this build that's really strong. For example, we have the Ash of War, which is going to deal amazing damage. Waves of Darkness is a really interesting Ash of War because it's got multiple parts to it. By pressing it, you'll slam down, then do an explosion of that wave of darkness, then a second explosion will occur pretty quick after that, and then a delayed one after that. Also, you can press a heavy attack to do a further swing if you ever see someone survive this or ever want to trade into that in PvP. But ultimately, it is very much a trading tool. You will need to use it defensively or when they're near enough to you to actually hit with them. If they're close enough, you'll hit with a slam down, which will stagger them with the greatsword, leading to a guaranteed hit with the first wave and often the second wave. This can lead to a massive burst of damage up to 1100 or even 1300 depending on the enemy. This can basically win a fight if you ever land it, but it must be used defensively or in trade because otherwise it's very hard to hit. Having said that, the third wave comes out slow enough you can move around with it, so it could be a spacing tool, using its great space for that third wave while you cast some spells during it. Ultimately though, if they ever trade into it, this will burst them into oblivion and it feels amazing. Now our sorceries for utility are Carian Slicer and Star Shower. Star Shower is obviously a really good thing for ranged harass. If anyone's backing up to buff up, take a mana pot, cast their own spells or incantations, you can interrupt them with this. Or you can start the fight by really harassing them and forcing them to come run into you. We run Terra Magica in this build, which isn't as good as it was in PvP, but it's still a great tool to force people to come fight you. And if you can fight within it, your weapon, being that it's got magic damage on it, will actually be enhanced. So you can play some mind games with the Star Shower, forcing people to run into you, playing into your Terra Magica, or working as a great harass and catching them even when they often roll it successfully. Meanwhile, Carian Slicer is just insane. I think we all know that. It comes out really quick, especially with the running attack version, and as it's so fast and so sudden, it's a really good combination with the greatsword itself. They might expect that slower moveset and that specific range when suddenly you're just stabbing them to hell at a pace that's completely different to your Colossal sword. Finishing low health enemies off with this as a roll catch usually works incredibly well, or starting a fight out by going for some greatsword attacks and then swapping to the slicer to mix up. It gives you a little bit of mind game options in this build for PvP, even if it's as simple as just using the basics of the greatsword and slicing to change the pace. Overall though, your weapon and the moveset, the Ash of War, the Star Shower for range, the slice for a mix-up, each one of these individually is really strong and well placed and well used together can be devastating. So it's a very fun and effective build in PvP. But how does it perform in PvE? It's much more of an all-rounder playstyle here. You use your spells depending on the situation, you buff up as much as possible of course, and fight in Terra Magica whenever you can. The Ash of War though, Waves of Darkness, is going to be the biggest hitter you have. It's just a bit slow to get off in say a more mobile boss fight. You want to use it in those nicer, bigger punish windows, or look to trade with it to create a massive burst of damage that can be up to 5,000 per use. Plus, as an Ash of War with many hits and big strong heavy follow-ups, it can stagger the bosses at that, leading to criticals and further further combos. The weapon itself will hit nice and hard, with all the benefits to the Colossal Sword range and moveset, and as a frost weapon, you will see the ice proc regularly, especially in combination with the Ash. Our spells of the Slicer and Stars work depending on the situation. Star spam is always going to be great against an enemy that's at range. Often that's what will happen at the start of a fight. You'll have the space to put a Terra Magica down and then go to town with Star spam before the fight even begins. It's going to be a smooth 400 or 500 damage per use, and that's nothing to look down on. Meanwhile, the Slicer is best used for fast combos to maybe finish off low health enemies, or if they have low poise, it'll just destroy them. Like if Carian Slicer can stagger an enemy even a little bit, you should just spam it into them. It will just kill them, and there's nothing they can do. When we pop our Wondrous Physic at the start of the fight though, we also enjoy 8 seconds of free FP usage, which is a great time to say set up Terra Magica for free, and obviously get some Star Showers out at no cost at the beginning of the fight. So compared to some builds, it definitely doesn't rely on say a single gimmick or focus. You just use what's best in the moment, be that the heavy staggering hits the weapon, the Ash for the big burst, your range options, or the quick finish slices. It's just a neat way to play with lots of options, certainly more interesting than just pressing one button and winning, but still very strong, especially with the Ash when used well. So I like it. It's felt a bit more unique compared to some other builds. Time for us to go over the build then. As you obviously will be able to tell at this point, we're using a Cold Greatsword. This gives us a nice 153 Cold Frost build-up. This is running the Waves of Darkness, Ash of War, and then we have our Heavy Dagger. It doesn't really matter what affinity this is in, it's just a tool for a Golden Vow, so we don't have to use 25 Faith to get that kind of effect. An AR buff when we swap to this, and it's our main hand, just costs a little bit of FP. We get a weaker version of Golden Vow, then we swap off of it. The reason we use just a dagger is because it's quite light at 1.5. Now our staff is the Carian Glintstone Staff. This is important because it boosts Carian Sword Sorcery, and as we are using that, it's going to be a nice benefit to that. For our armor, we're running the full Spellblade set. This is quite low on poise, but it does give us 2% magic attack power per piece that we're wearing, although there is diminishing returns, so you could consider wearing just a couple pieces and running some higher poise gear for PvP. When it comes to the talismans, we of course have Shard of Alexander, because we are doing big hits with our Ash of War. For some health and stamina and equip load, very importantly, we have Erdtree's Favor +2. To improve the power of our sorceries, we have the Graven Mass Talisman, and with what charges we do have the Godfrey Icon. With the Wondrous Physic, we're using the Magic Shrouding Crack tier to further boost our magic attack, and the Cerulean Hidden tier, which is what's giving us those 8 seconds of no FP consumption. Just a nice bit of utility, but you could run something else. Of course, for our sorceries then, we have the Star Shower, which is very nice, sending out all of those charges. We can hold it for a more effect, and we have the Carian Slicer, of course, and lastly, our major buff of Terra Magica. When it comes to the stats then, at level 150 we have 60 Vigor. You could go lower if you're just doing a PvE version of this build, but 60 Vigor is important for PvP. 20 Mind, so we've got a nice amount of FP to work with. 14 Endurance, so we can actually wear this equipment without being heavy loaded. 66 Strength for when we're two-handing the weapon to reach that soft cap of 80. Then the rest of our points are just dumped into as much Intelligence as you can get, and as you can see I've reached 40 with that. Each point of Strength and each point of Intelligence will raise the power of my weapon. But there you have it. That is the build explained and showcased. I'm seeing the Greatsword a lot these days. In my PvP, I would say easily half the people that are dueled were using one as well. It's obviously in a really good place, but it's been in a great place for a long time. There's so many ways to run this weapon, and this magical frosty style is just one of them. If you have enjoyed this build and video though, do drop a like on it so we can make more like this. And until next time, I've been Hollow, you've been you. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.